Hello and welcome to episode 188 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason, and today we're joined by a special guest, not my dad. And this is Bernie. You want to introduce yourself? Tell them a little about yourself.
Sure, absolutely, Jason. Happy to be on. Thank you so much for having me. I am your dad's brother from another mother. So I'm Dr. Bernie Mullin, and Dr. Bill Sutton and I, along with Dr. Hardy, wrote the sport marketing book years ago. So my background is very similar to Dr. Sutton's in that for 10 years I was a professor at the University of Massachusetts, sport management program, preceded Dr. Sutton there. But after that I went to work for the Pirates, and that's where I met Dr. Sutton. Dr. Hardy had drafted out the book at that time, but we gave it to those guys, and they made it of a strong academic quality. So I've had 10 years of experience in baseball with the Senior VP of Business for the Pirates and the Rockies, consulting with the Dodgers. Thanks to Dr. Bill Sutton, I was the Senior VP of Marketing and Team Business at the NBA, where we worked together for a little while, which was tons of fun. But Bill had preceded me doing a sabbatical year there and told David Stern about me. So Dr. Sutton's famous quote about me is, I went from who the F is Bernie Mullin to Senior VP of the NBA in a month from doing a seminar workshop for the NBA. And so I've had experience in minor league hockey, Major League Baseball, Vice Chancellor of Athletics at the University of Denver, Senior VP of Marketing Team Business at the NBA, and then CEO of the Hawks and Thrashers in Atlanta. And then 12 years ago, we started the Aspire Group. We're a global sports marketing company. So that's probably more than enough, Jace.
Okay. Well, yesterday you experienced live sports in person, correct?
I did. First time in 6.5 months.
And what was that like to be in the show?
It was weird. It was good, and it was weird. I went to Georgia Tech Clemson, probably the least contested college football game in history, certainly the least contested one in the history of the ACC. Georgia Tech lost by almost 70 points. But it was weird because, first of all, where we normally park on the west side of campus, I went with my wife and I, Val is the world's biggest college football fan. We parked on the west side of campus, and all of a sudden there's no cars. There's no one in the parking area. And you walk across campus, it's empty. Normally there's tailgating and students playing cornhole and all kinds of stuff. It's Southern football, so usually quite busy, but not this time. The game itself, of course, was socially distanced, so 15,000 in a 55,000 seat stadium, and everybody has to wear masks except for two clowns sitting in front of us who decided not to wear masks and drank beer the whole game. And every time the ushers and security people came in and said, "You got to put your mask on," they'd lift up a beer can even if it was empty. So obviously it was not much of a competitive game. After Georgia Tech tied it up 7-7, they never scored again.
Yeah.
But it was, it was a beautiful autumn, as I would call it, growing up in England, a fall football day, and it was weather was super, 70 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. It's just good to be back. Different to not be able to see the band or the cheerleaders, on the sideline. They're in the stands, and band can't go on the field, and it wasn't the atmosphere it normally is, but to me it was a step on the staircase back to normalcy, whatever that new normalcy is going to be. So it was good.
And do you think that the NBA is just, I know we're switching gears a little bit to the NBA, but do you think the NBA is going to wait until they can have fans back, even if it means waiting until March or April?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think, certainly the players have to have the time to rest. So,
right.
Your dad and I are constantly sending little notes to Adam Silver, who's our colleague, obviously Commissioner Silver, great friend and a really smart guy. my note on Monday was, fantastic job with the bubble and pulling it off. And,
Oh yeah.
Just incredible when you think about it.
I love bubble basketball. Like I like the sound of the squeak. I mean, I like hearing the players. I liked hearing the sneakers. Like I liked it all. Like that was great.
Well, what I love watching some of the, the LCS last night, and you hear the ump go, no, inside, no, high. I love it, and I love the squeaks too. What I love more than anything else was the basketball. It was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
The guys aren't traveling, and for those of us, and I've been on the plane numerous times. Obviously, the team plane, in the different sports that I've worked in, and with the Hawks, that sometimes you're getting on a plane 11 o'clock at night. The beauty is that the bus is inside the airlock or in the loading dock area of the arena, and you walk up, show your ID, and they check you off, and bus arrives in Blacktop at the FOB, and you climb up, in our case, the old Champion A, you climb up the steps, the back of the plane, walk to your seat, everybody's on, within 5 minutes the engines are warming up and you're pushing back. But, you're still landing in Sacramento at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
And, so you've got all of those kind of travels, and, certainly some of the players, like to go out and party, not necessarily at 3 a.m. in the morning, but if they have an extra night in the city, all of that's gone. I mean, highly controlled, very limited as to what they could do inside the bubble. So I think you got the best of it with the players, well rested, and you also got the fact that they were all together, so that the team spirit and the locker room chemistry, came out where they had it. And I don't know. I'm guessing because I'm not inside the bubble, but the Milwaukee Bucks never got back what they had beforehand, and teams like the Miami Heat came together like you would believe.
Oh yeah, I've never seen, like I said, talked a little bit last week. Like I think Jimmy Butler was always regarded as like a top 20 player. I mean, or maybe top 15, but I feel like he took a leap that people just, and I know some of that's brought on by his behavior and everything else, but like I think he just took a leap into like the elite class of the NBA currently. Never seen a player do that before.
No, you talk about raise your game. He raised his game unbelievably, and he raised his brand and his visibility, and I think all of that deservedly so. And thrilled for him, absolutely thrilled for him that happened. So back to the email to Adam, and got a really nice note back from him, as I always do, and same as your dad. And because he's just an amazing communicator. But, I said, hey, the challenge is do it again. So your ultimate question, Jason, do that again in January, and do it by slowly bringing fans back. So I have no inside information whatsoever, which I would have if, we're still working there. But my gut guess is they'll do crawl, walk, run, sprint.
Right.
Which I think is the right way to go, and then they choose differently. And, start with a certain number, in a 20,000 arena, start with 4 or 5, and, every 3 or 4 or 5 more home games, as long as everything's gone well and there's no high infection rate or problems, just add more. Go to a higher percentage of capacity.
I also think, like, I know they have the app where you can clap, but I think if they made that much more interactive, like, as I was talking to my dad, like, if you were watching, say, Steelers Browns, or it's the NBA Finals and you're in the fourth quarter. If you log in as a Steelers fan and you log as a Brown fan, as you're tapping like a lot of those little tap games and you're answering trivia questions about the NFL, the NBA, you're doing fan stuff, like it'll raise the volume in the crowd, so you're fighting. So it's the fourth quarter. If more Ravens, if more Browns fans click in, then the stadium is quiet in Pittsburgh. If more Steelers click in, it's loud, and sort of allow the fans to sort of just embrace technology a little bit more, take the app to the next level,
I think you're right on. I think there's a lot of interactive things that could be done that weren't being done. I mean, my Premier League soccer team in England, just Everton, happens to be top of the league right now, which we're yucking it up, and got a good draw at home to Liverpool, the champions and World Club champions, yesterday morning. The video wall, the opportunity to be on the video wall, either to earn it from a variety of different loyalty ways or donations to charity
Oh
to
yeah.
earn that opportunity and to be more interactive. I think all of those things are excellent ideas. We've done a lot with the main core of our business. Certainly before COVID, and obviously we've done a lot of pivoting since COVID, but the main core of our business is 90% fan relationship management, with colleges, so a lot of database marketing, intelligence, social, digital media to then have the conversation to build fans for life, core of our business. And so we've done a lot of virtual golf games in the South, virtual hunting, virtual events with players, team personnel, coaches, etc., to continue to build a rapport and have the interaction. And so I think there's a lot of virtual experiences and there's a lot of virtual input, just like you said, that can be given back to enhance the in-stadium experience, even when there's no one in there, no one as in only the family or close people tied to the production of the game. Because in Britain, particularly the Premier League, there's a lot more restrictions because they've had massive reinfection, unfortunately. And it's great to see, like yesterday, it was the first time I'd been there, but Georgia Tech had certainly had the game last week against Louisville with, again, relatively small crowds, socially distanced.
Yeah. And like I said, luckily we're at a point now, with HDR and 4K that, television looks great. And then I'm hoping, I got an Oculus Quest 2, the VR headset, and I'm hoping to watch a game in VR and check that out. Because I feel like that's, you think about the VR, like if all of a sudden, you depending on where you have the camera, and I can just switch from camera view to camera view to camera view, like that's a really cool interactive experience that, even I could never get a live stadium. So, there's so many technology things we can do moving forward that are going to be just really cool.
Really, really cool and really connect and really enhance the experience. I've seen, obviously with the NBA All-Star Game, the NBA Tech Summit we have every year, that, Dr. Bill and I both go to. And so we've seen what it can be like with the VR. I've seen it with Oculus myself, not from a sporting event, but from, some of the videos where, you're in a shark tank under the water and the shark swims right at you, and you almost go, oh my God, I have a heart attack. It's beyond virtual reality once you're into it. I can remember 20 years ago at Navy Pier in Chicago was doing some of the video laser tag game type stuff, with VR glasses on, and what a fantastic experience all of that was.
And it just keeps getting, as the tech grows, it gets better and, lighter and easier to use. I think that's, like I said, the Quest, like you literally just pop it on your head and you can do hand tracking. Like it's become so simple that it's becoming easier and easier for people to embrace, which is going to be really cool. And if you could ever have,
And also it's become way more ubiquitous because of, the costs are dropping.
Right.
So as it does with all new technology, once the initial equipment purchases or software or whatever capability purchases have been amortized, the actual cost, it opens it up to much broader array of people, which is great.
Oh, yeah. Well, do you have any closing NBA thoughts on the season besides the great job they did in the bubble?
What they pulled off was absolutely incredible. I think, I don't know if it's just NBA thoughts, Jason. I think that, two quick thoughts I think that are good seeds for your listeners to chew on, and maybe for future podcasts for you and Dr. Bill. The first one is that much like, and I'm not going to get into politics, but much like the criticism of federalism versus statehood of COVID and how it was handled here in the United States versus other countries that are, there's not federal statehood split. So I think sports missed the boat, and I think after 9/11 we didn't miss the boat. We got together with every one of the leagues and talked about how we're all going to handle it. In terms of how we were going to handle the increased security concerns and all those issues, how we're going to handle the acknowledgement of the dreadful events of 9/11, and how we're going to return to normalcy all of those things we as leagues met. And maybe these leagues did have those meetings, but there was no united, coordinated response.
Right.
Every league did its own thing. Every athletic conference did its own thing. You got athletic conferences, some of which we are heavily involved in because, we have we have 3 Big Ten conference schools. We have 6 MAC conference schools. We've got multiple schools in other conferences. There was no unified standard approach, and I understand because some of it is geographic. But, we're not going to play, we're going to play, we're going to start really late, to me was ridiculous.
Yes.
So I think much like the federal government, there wasn't a sports and entertainment business response. And I think that was problematic and not the way to go. And the other element I would say is after 9/11, after the Boston Marathon massacre, sport was in the drive. We were in the engine. We were in the driver's seat. We're the ones that taught the world how to come back, how to say, basically, screw you, Osama bin Laden. You're not going to change our lifestyle, and we're going to come back. And here's how to respectfully allow a community to express itself and say, Big Puppy doing we're effing Boston strong.
Right.
That was missing. Now we're in the caboose, and we've been put in the caboose by governors and mayors to different degrees in different cities and different states. Yesterday was a good example. My wife and I were willing to go and do that with the right precautions in place. Other people aren't. So I think sports normally helps us get back to normalcy. Not that it's way more important than it should be, and that it is, but it is an important part of American life and culture, and certainly for college football, college basketball when it comes around. It's a very important part of people's lives. Certainly my life, my experience living in America. And so selfishly, because we sell tickets, we want to see that come back. We want to see it come back with all due caution, or as appropriate, with all safety for our fans. But I think we can play a role in bringing life back to normalcy and people understanding that with the right precautions, you can have 25, 35, 45 people, thousands that is, people at a sporting event done the right way and not have a super spreader event. That's my hope. And I'm hoping that, certainly for us as a company, come March, we're selling next September, next fall events fully, and that I'm hoping that the Super Bowl and the College Football Championship, particularly with outdoor stadia, can be as close to full capacity as is reasonable, fair, and safe.
Well said. Very well said. Well, the NFL is dealing a little bit more with some of these things right now.
Yes, they are.
It does seem that, like I said, I feel like, just on a personal note, I've been about as precautious as you can, and as people know that listen to the show, I have COVID. Hopefully I'm going to test negative in a week or so, but as I start to make my drive back. But, at our studio, we put every precaution in place. We have 6 people that walk around sanitizing all day long. We're testing daily, depending on your department, and and you're still going to have a few outbreaks here and there. And I think that's what's happening with the NFL. I mean, I know what the Titans did was a little bit, but
a little crazy, but I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think early on the standard was you have one case, close it down. You have one kid in a high school, a grade school, a middle school, a university, close it down. I mean, that to me is silly. I mean,
right.
At least finally, many of the universities, our neighbor son is a freshman at Notre Dame, beautiful young man, and just, so he goes to Notre Dame campus as a freshman, 2 weeks early, ready to start classes, and then boom, the outbreak starts, and he's sitting in his dorm, and we've got other friends whose kids at other campuses, same boat. You're on campus, paying campus, dorm, you're paying for the food to sit in the dorm and watch online. I feel for these kids, just like I feel for all the high school kids who missed out on graduation last year. I mean, dreadful.
Yeah, I think.
But what are you going to do? I'm not suggesting herd immunity at all. I am saying I think there's there's potential for other huge problems in terms of mental health, financial problems, marital problems, beyond depression to suicide problems with keeping people shut in. And America is a country that goes overboard on individual freedom, sometimes, in my opinion, to the wrong degree to put the community as a whole in danger. And I'm not suggesting that at all, but I am suggesting that the only way we're going to know is if we let people do these things, and if the standard is exactly what you just said, Jason, and that is that we know full well that the idea of you're never going to get anybody infected ain't going to happen unless you're the NBA, superbly researched, superbly planned, and superbly executed.
Right, and not, like I said, we shoot a TV show, which means we have about 200 people, in production on set every day, and essentially when my assistant went positive, they pulled everyone that she had in contact with out. We went home for a week. Anyone that tested negative went right back to work, but the show kept going because, you can't, one person tests positive, you can't shut an entire show down. It just doesn't make
it. The show's going to go on.
The Hollywood standard.
I think that's Hollywood, and I know Hollywood is conforming to the highest standards,
right,
as you'd expect when it's so strongly California, Los Angeles driven, where you've got people that are, I think, probably less conservative in their politics, but more conservative in terms of COVID implementation or COVID prevention implementation policies. So I think it's the right answer.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we got to do with sports. If your expectation is you're going to put 15,000, or I don't know what the crowd was last night in Alabama, but for the Alabama-Georgia game, but let's say it was 20,000. You're going to make sure everybody's wearing masks if you can. You're going to make sure the kids are not all standing together. But somewhere along the line, you got to get on with life in a safer, healthier way as you can.
All right, well, let's play a little game right now. As you saw in person last night, Trevor Lawrence play, right?
Yep.
So of all the teams that have drafted quarterbacks recently, being your Giants, your Jets, your Redskins, obviously it looks like the Redskins are already moving on. How many of those teams do you think would do a reset right now for Trevor Lawrence? Like if you're the Giants, do you stick with Daniel Jones, or would you jump on the Trevor Lawrence best prospects and Andrew Luck bandwagon and just try to move on?
Yeah, well, I probably would jump on Trevor Lawrence because I think he's the complete package. And Clemson is one of our clients. We've been selling their tickets for several years, and the athletic director Dan Rather, coach D Rather, as we lovingly call him, was our the AD that brought us in and started us in this fan relationship management business, Georgia Tech. So I know what Dabo does and how he builds these players and the kind of quality they have as a person in terms of leadership, what you want in the locker room. So long ramble, I'd take him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I was like, obviously the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Seahawks most likely would obviously say, not that they're going to have a chance to draft him anyway, but I was trying to think of which other teams he probably wouldn't pass on. That's, whether you have an older quarterback or a young quarterback that, I think you get into questions like Kyler Murray, Carson Wentz, like those guys, but I'd still feel like maybe you still roll the ball with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Not to mention you get him under control for 5 years contract-wise, which is
you're still a fan, just like your dad, because you had no choice. You were going to be.
Exactly.
So, and notice I said it the proper way. Still is not the Steelers. And from my time in Pittsburgh, I know that never say it any other way. But would you want him to be the next guy behind Pat?
I've been calling for the next guy behind. I knew he was having a great season, and I really like what they're doing this year. But I've been waiting 4 years for the replacement. So.
Yeah, well, I'm a Chiefs fan, so I got my homies. So I'm hoping Patrick's got he at least plays out the full term of his 10-year contract, $1 billion-dollar contract. Don't think we need him at the Chiefs, God willing, as long as Patrick stays healthy. But pretty much anywhere else, yeah. I think he's the real deal. Ironically enough, Jason, one of our new clients is a company called Hound Talent. The parent company is called Baker Street Scientific, and they are big data pattern recognition, and they've got this Consensei modeler, interactive modeler, it's artificial intelligence algorithm, and it's intelligent talent assessment and acquisition.
Oh, wow.
And one of the biggest things they do is the NFL draft. So they've got these modelers that look at, 16 factors that really make a difference, and quarterbacks, so they've been putting it all together in the draft. So, we hadn't talked about this as a question, but it's hilarious because I've got all their insights on the upcoming draft class, and and how, versus last year, why was Jalen not as highly ranked by some people as others, and all of that kind of nonsense, which is interesting. And you look at how Trevor's rated today, which is just ridiculously high, and how good he looks across all of the really important parameters that are the best predictors of success.
And obviously the old school eye test people love him too. So he's getting both sides of the aisle.
Yeah. I mean, he passes it all. I mean, this, what our client, I'm not going to make it a commercial for them, but what they're doing more than anything else is combining quantitative data and all the typical analytics data, which is so big these days, but they're able to quantify the gut judgment of the scouts. So, I mean, I've sat from when I first went to the Pirates back in '86 in some of these meetings, and the scouts go, what do you think was that as bat speed? Above average. What do you mean above average? Well, maybe it's just average. Right. And they're all throwing out their guts, versus, and I can remember suggesting back in '86, could you use the jug's gut to measure the bat speed? And they looked at me like I was speaking, Mandarin. and I said, no, I'm serious. And they go, it'll pick up the speed of the ball, not the bat. I said, you simulate a swing without the ball? I mean, doesn't that pick up the speed of the bat? Because, now they're doing it.
Of course. Yeah.
So it's that kind of stuff that I think, I would think Trevor Lawrence can't miss. He certainly, if I was in one of the clubs, he'd certainly be in number one on my list, and I would be looking to, make quite a few changes. And certainly when you see how quickly some of the superstar, quarterbacks have assimilated into the league in the last couple of years, or give them a little bit of exposure in their rookie year and the second year. I mean, they're starting and commanding. Why wouldn't you?
I can't imagine you wouldn't. No.
Yeah.
To be fair, I was going to bring up baseball, but I've watched very little baseball. I just know the Astros lost finally, which I think is a good sign.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people with karma. It's our VP of New Biz Dev played football at Georgia Tech. He's a Tampa boy, so they're referring to it as Tampa Bay, for Tom Brady.
Of course.
And, I don't know what you've heard of that from your dad or your mom and dad living there, but obviously the Bolts, the Lightning got the Stanley Cup, which I was thrilled for because they think so highly of their owner Jeff Finnick and know what he's done with your dad at the USF Sport Management Program, and in the community as well, just incredible. And Steve Griggs, the CEO, is a good friend and a class act. So thrilled for them to say, not to diss on the Stars or anybody else, but
no.
Thrilled for Tampa Bay. Hope they can go all the way. I'm rooting for the Braves. I'm an ex-Pirate and a Rocky, so they're much more my teams. But I'm rooting for the Braves this time around. I've lived here 16 years. They knocked my Pirates out of the National League Championship 2 years in a row and took away any chance of my National League Championship ring. But so I'm not naturally a Braves fan, but this year I'm looking for the Braves, and I think they're a good story. And I also have an implicit bias against any of the teams that are the highest in payroll. So, Yankees, Dodgers, payrolls that are double the average in the league is not where I'm going to be supporting.
Well, didn't they say that Garrett Cole makes more than the entire Tampa Bay roster, like Tampa Bay roster, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you're looking at the Braves. I think for the shortened season, their payroll bill is not much more than 25% of what the Dodgers is. Um, if indeed it's even above 25%.
Absolutely
It's
crazy.
just crazy. And the same thing with the Tampa Bay Rays. So obviously with the cheating thing with Houston Astros, nothing against them, but I prefer to see the Rays win it, and I'd like to see a Rays-Braves World Series. It would be great, and it's good baseball. The performance of these players is just amazing. The only comment I have, and it's not to crap on baseball, but after 10 years of working in it with the three teams that I worked extensively with, is it because I've gotten old? Is it because young people like yourself and even younger, my grandkids, have got me thinking that it's too damn long and too damn slow? It's hard for me to watch a 3-hour game.
It is. Well,
and obviously with the Rockies, I remember with Bob Gebhardt, our GM, and I was the senior VP of business in the design of Coors Field, and we had all kinds of arguments about how big the field was going to be and how far we pushed the fences back. And I wanted the fences about 50 feet out of the infield. I wanted as much long ball home run as possible because that would sell tickets. And obviously, I realized that's not right. And Gab was an ex-pitcher, so he wanted the outfield fence in Kansas, and so he was the baseball guy, so he was going to win that argument more than I was. But I just found it pretty interesting that it was probably pushed further back than I would have. We had more triples than just about any other ballpark, and we had more inside the park home runs, which means more pitching changes, which means longer games, and I don't think that's what young people want going forward. So I think we need to do whatever the heck we can to make it a shorter game,
I think,
without losing any of the integrity of the game itself.
Right, but some of that integrity.
For years we talked about how that's done, and it's whether it's a clock on the pitcher, clock on the at bat, or can't step out, and intentional walk changes make a hell of a lot of sense. But what else is causing the delays? And step out of the batter box. I mean, we tried to limit that. Step off the plate. Tried to limit that. Pitch overs to hold the runner on. All the things that elongate the game, I think, inappropriately.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at little examples too, like the Tatis thing this year. I love a good bat flip. Like, if you don't want the guy to hit a home run, don't give up a home run. Like, I thought having him apologize and, some of the weird old school baseball unwritten rules, I think, gotten out of hand. And then I think the discussions just became too analytics, where, you couldn't have a fun baseball discussion. It was just, the WAR says this, the numbers say this, and that's the answer. And again, not to, I believe in analytics. It's just, it got overly done in baseball, I thought, as far as the discussion of the players and who's good, who's bad.
Well, as you know, with Saber and all the other stuff, I mean, baseball's always been highly analytic or, stats driven, sometimes to good effect, sometimes I think to not good effect. And I really do believe that, I can remember being 3 months in, former professor, sitting down with Jimmy Leland and Ray Miller, our pitching coach, and after a series where probably was the Mets, because the Mets were our biggest rival, although early on we sucked. We were in last place, so we weren't doing anything. It was 3 years in before we had the outfield of dreams with Bonnier and Bonds and then Slight, that we actually started to challenge them and then, win the division. But, I can remember sitting there and Jimmy Leland just saying to me, there's an inevitable way, if I have to tell a player to go plunk and retaliate on a pitch, there's something wrong with him. And you're right, some of that stuff is the unwritten rules of baseball, some of which they're unwritten for good reason, because you don't ever address them in writing. or in the press or whatever else. But I mean, you're going to give me, and those were the days where you could throw chin music and,
Right.
You weren't immediately tossed. And the same thing. I mean, Dominique Wilkins, when he worked with me at the Hawks, we'd have numerous conversations about basketball in the day with some of these little pipsqueaks, is what they would call them, because it was, they were all big fellas. And, the approach, without a shadow of a doubt, was, you go into the key, you get the snot knocked out of you. So, you better go into the key, just play ball. Don't try and be a little guy that instigates something more physical, because, you're going to get away with it because the refs are going to protect you, because that stuff's in the past.
Yeah.
So, I think the same thing with chin music. Pitching inside, obviously crowding the plate, all of that stuff. Flipping it back because you hit a home run. So what?
So what? It's fun.
But again, soccer. Someone gets injured, they kick the ball out. That's the spirit of cricket. If you know that the ball hits you on the glove, the bat handle, and you got caught behind, you ought to walk. A gentleman walks because of honor. Crying out loud, are you kidding me? I mean, talk about the sport of soccer where, people get touched and they flip up in the air. I was watching a Premier League game this morning, and, Son, who plays for Tottenham, is one of the worst at diving. Of course, I'm a biased Evertonian, so there's a couple of Liverpool players, including Salah and Mane, that have perfected the dive. They should be in the Olympics of diving.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like Harden in basketball with his...
It's the same thing with the flops in basketball.
Yeah.
That never used to be there. And, when I played semi-pro soccer in England, if you flopped, your own teammate, I played with 3 guys who were Army SAS, Green Beret guys. I mean, they would have thumped you. Kind of a man of you. You don't pull that crap.
No.
I mean, these days it's they're taught how to feign fouls and play gets on their back and touches them and they flop. And so, I mean, that kind of stuff is definitely not for the better of the sport. And what do I hear about from Americans who don't like soccer more than anything else? It's the flopping, it's the diving, it's the feigning. They would probably blame, many people would probably blame the European player influence.
Basketball
to a higher degree for the same thing. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't think it's limited to European players anymore who flop.
No, James Harden, obviously, and Chris Paul are the kings of squabbling at this point. So
yeah,
very non-European. Yeah. All right. Well, we end every show by asking our guests if they have a entertainment recommendation and a food recommendation.
Entertainment recommendation.
Outside of sports, obviously. If book,
sure.
movie,
Absolutely.
TV show, yeah.
Well, I love Broadway shows, and your dad and I love Broadway shows. Your mom, dad, my wife and I have done lots of Broadway shows and plays together. I just love them. I think quickly, a fun experience is. For me, was the World's Greatest Showman. Now, your dad doesn't like it. He doesn't think it's true to history, which surprises me because I know how much he goes back in the history for P.T. Barnum and Bill Beck and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
In sports context, circus context. But I think there were 6 songs in that movie which should have been nominated for the Oscar for the best song, and I guarantee that is going to become a Broadway play.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it just
as soon as those beautiful people get back to work, yes.
Yeah, and I love the positivism. I love the vision. I love the dream. Particularly I've got a 6-year-old granddaughter who's got a voice of an angel, and I'm trying to teach the song, Million Dreams. Every night I go to bed. And I just think that's so beautiful as a mental picture of what you'd want, your grandchild or your child to be following, that I can create the world and the reality of the world the way I want to create it. And I think, to me, It's so consistent with the American dream. It's why 47 years ago, my ex-wife now, my wife at the time was English, and we moved and made our life here. So that entertainment for me is, I think music is the language of the soul, and I really believe that we need to, particularly in these terrible times of COVID, the economy, and the pressure that's done for so many people, the devastation, obviously the social injustice, Black Lives protests, the vitriol, the division, the hatred. I really think that there is something where, put that beautiful music in your head. As I told all the kids that work for me recently, Jason, I don't believe anybody's gotten COVID from a tree, from the sky, or the sun.
No, definitely not.
Get outside. My vision is live life through rose-colored glasses, and it's a Pittsburgh story, an Israeli artist who years ago I heard him speak at Pittsburgh Rotary. And he said the difference between us as humans and animals is we do as things that are beautiful and aesthetic. Animals build a functional, burrow, nest, hole. We build beautiful houses, paint beautiful pictures. So that's what humanity is. And he held up a rose, and he said, look at the rose. What do you see? And everybody says, it's a beautiful flower. There we have. Anybody looking at the 7 thorns on this rose? And he starts picking them off. The answer is no. No one's looking at the rose, the thorns on the rose. He says, well, why in our relationships with people do we focus on the damn thorns?
It's very, very true.
I think it's a beautiful picture and vision that we need to live through rose-colored glasses and not be biased in the rose-colored glasses, but to look at the world as the beauty of the rose, not the 7 thorns.
Well said.
And I think the theater and music helps us do that.
Yes. Yes, it does.
And what was the last one?
Oh, and have you eaten anything fun and exciting recently? I sadly have not due to the COVID, so.
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. We actually went to a restaurant where we sat outside, and it was the remnants of Hurricane Delta, excuse me. And so it monsoon rain on this temporary fabric roof over the outside deck that we're on. And too hard for us to hear, but I ordered the special, and the special was swordfish that was sauteed in chicken broth.
Oh.
Because swordfish to me so often is dry, and this was to die for. And I can't figure out what the sauce was, but it was some, white bean or pea sauce that was around it, and it had sweet potato, almost like a hash. And I'm not a sweet potato fan, but it was I called it sweet potato smush.
Okay.
And it was this wonderful Italian restaurant right here in Atlanta. So it was sauteed swordfish, crisp on the outside, and incredibly moist and tasty on the inside.
Well, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, well, you knew I was going to talk about food, given your dad and I, our friendship is very, and it had to be the Italian side of his heritage, because we're only ever going to go to barbecue, or we're going to go to Italian restaurants whenever your dad sets it up, and usually it's some scuzzy dive that has to die for barbecue, as you know full well.
Oh yes, very well. I grew up with it. That's the way it's always been.
That's where it's always been. So all right, so I'm going to always go with Dr. Bill. Like I said, he's truly my brother from another mother. We spent a lot of time together, great vacations together, and a lot of fun business meetings together. So food is always a good part of it. And again, I would say, Jason, get in touch with the European side, whether it's Italian or in my case, English, Irish. Meals are a social occasion for family and friends. It's like a baseball game. The baseball game is the excuse to eat.
Yeah.
Meals are an excuse to get together and really kibitz, as they would say in Yiddish, and really come together.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Are you kidding me? Thank you.
It was great to have you. Hopefully we'll get you on again, maybe with my dad, and do a little three-person pod, or at least I'll probably stay in the background being quiet, but it'll be fun.
Don't ever do that. You're the future. You've got a better handle on it than us two old buggers. And so don't do that, but I'd be honored to come back on it and being on with you. That'd be fantastic. And you stay safe and well, and hopefully you get a full recovery very quickly, and you're back working on the set of NCIS New Orleans soon.
I hope so. All right. So thank everybody.
All
See
right,
you next week.